All right, let's get started. Thank you so much to the Ideal Spaces Working Group for having me, for being able to do this presentation at the Buchmesse. It is a pleasure and an honor. And yeah, let's get started with the presentation about the Utopian disruption project that we did together with the Ideal Spaces Working Group. So that's us is Urban, the company. But we are going to first give a little bit more context to how things came to be. All right, just a very brief word about myself. My name is Matthias Bühler. I am the founder and CTO of Urban, and we were founded in 2017 in Switzerland, and we are currently a company of 12 people. My background originally is in architecture, but yeah, over the time I've been doing 3D graphics for a long time, and over the last precisely 14 years I have been working more and more in the field of urban 3D modeling. So that is my specialty and the specialty meanwhile of my own company, Urban. All right, so as just mentioned, we are specializing in creating 3D architecture and 3D environments. And one of the inspirations that I had was basically video games when I was a young kid. And then after having studied architecture and getting more and more into 3D graphics, creating 3D worlds became more and more in the inspiration to work in and just be creative in and learn more technical things about. Now the company is built in two business units. First of all, we have Urban Solutions, and then we have Urban Studios. So Urban Solutions is the part that does custom solutions and is doing mostly service projects with clients and collaborations together with companies, for example, or entities like the Ideal Spaces Working Group. And on the other hand, we have Urban Studios, where we are creating off-the-shelf, high-quality 3D buildings and other assets for 3D environments. This is our website if you're curious to hear more. All right, just a very brief example of one of the service projects we've been working on. This visualization here is the result of a collaboration in multiple different aspects, where we helped the city of Zurich in finding some of the creative solutions for their digital twin, for their three-dimensional, or actually four-dimensional, if you count the time, representation of the city of Zurich. And we helped them in this particular case also with the representation of Zurich in the year 1800. Now on the Urban Studio side, this is a screenshot of our online shop where people can go and buy some high quality 3D buildings. Here an inspiration of one of the visualizations that we've been recently doing. So our focus is creating photorealistic visualizations. And here's another picture kind of showcasing some skyscrapers in the evening time. All right. Our work with the Ideal Spaces Working Group. So the collaboration and I would say the friendship has dated back quite a few years, and everything started for that collaboration in the year 2015, where one of the members of the Ideal Spaces Working Group reached out to me because of this project here. This is a project that me and a friend of mine, Cyril Oberhansley, we did together in between 2012 and 2014. So and then we were contacted by this person from the Ideal Spaces Working Group because they really liked this 3D model which we made. So now it's not a photograph, or these are not photographs. So these are completely digitally built 3D models of, in this case, this favela. And so for the 2016 Architecture Biennale, multiple ideal worlds were visualized in the Ideal Spaces Working Group team, and they asked me to take kind of as a counterpoint to all those ideal worlds, to be able to use some of these parts of this model here for basically a specific theoretical counterpart to the rest, where also it was pointed out that even in such a favela or shanty town, there are certain aspects that are very that have a high livability or high quality. All right. Continuing then, we started working together more, and also we started planning together certain crucial aspects of the 2018 Architecture Biennale, where the exhibition booth you actually see here in the Palazzo Mora in Venice, Italy. And for this exhibition, we were tasked to create to create multiple three-dimensional worlds. In this example here, you see a representation of the Italian Renaissance city called Sforzinda. So this is an entirely fictional city, or fictional in the sense of it was just described in a text, and we tried to find a representation of how the city would look like if it would have been planned. Another one of those worlds that we created was the terrace world, and another one is Tel Aviv. Let's have a look. And this is a representation of Tel Aviv in the original plan by Patrick Geddes from 1935. All right, let's move on. Now, how we work as a company. So we have some quite complex technical workflows that we have been developing, and we are specialists in a, let's say, modeling methodology called procedural modeling. So we are using one of those tools that specialize in this aspect of procedural modeling called City Engine. Here you see how this is working. So you have a user interface in a three-dimensional representation of a city, and you can basically edit the city by moving streets and make them wider and so on, and then the rest of the encoded architectural rules and urban planning rules update the model very, very fast and efficiently. And using this methodology, we have developed multiple rule sets for industrial city parts, residential city parts, commercial and downtown city parts. Same thing, obviously, also for parks and for the whole streetscape. And so when we are designing an environment, let's say a certain part of a city, we can then go in and assign those rules in the visualization here to those different colored parts. And out of that, we can generate a three-dimensional city model, which we can then export to other tools and visualize there. Here we see a small example of just about 500 by 500 meters of a, let's say, American suburb typology. Now, obviously, we can also extend this to a little bit bigger extents. This is a bit more work, but the methodology actually scales really well with the tools that we have now to also these larger city models. Cool. So talking about utopian disruption. First, let's talk about the team. The team was actually very, very small. So it was just Ulrich Gehmann from the Ideal Spaces Working Group, who was the project lead on that side. And then there was Anca Badut, an architect, and that was the project lead on our end. And there was myself just basically in a supervising role, liaising between Uli and Anca, and helping also on the technical side of things. All right, the main concept of the city of the project. So we had this idea that the typical descriptions of ideal cities usually describe extremely expensive or physically impossible architectures. So an example of that would be if you're looking at example drawings of a Renaissance ideal city. They are just these pompous Baroque constructions with many large Baroque buildings with fountains, and if you're looking at this, at the craftsmanship that would be needed and the amount of materials needed to create those idealized cities, that would be absolutely impossible to finance. Same thing also with obviously like metaphysical ideal cities. You could imagine flying cities. You could imagine the heavenly cities, however they are constructed, or for example painted on in certain Western churches, for example, or Western religions, how they are depicted. And obviously those things don't really have much of a grounding in our physical reality here. All right, so we asked ourselves, what could we do today with contemporary construction principles that are, let's say, proven, and they are, let's say, relatively cheap in the sense of normal typologies for architecture, so normal skyscrapers, normal industrial parts, normal park constructions, and so on. How far could we go towards an ideal with on a budget, you could say. Right. So then the derived questions from that kind of came to discussion, and that is kind of the definition of what is ideal and what is beautiful. Another question also, what is missing in most contemporary architectural or urban planning? And another one is, which spaces and spatial assemblies or patterns are crucial for a space to actually become ideal? And so the project, which we are going to show just in a minute on a conceptual level and in some renderings, is just obviously one potential solution to all of these questions. And the whole dialogue around those questions is definitely one that is very, very interesting and could be taken much further. And I'm pretty sure after these presentations, we will have some time to look into this a little bit deeper. But let's continue with the concept sketches. All right. So over the course of a couple of weeks, Anca and Uli together came up with multiple, let's say, methodologies of how spaces work. And you see at the bottom right, you see the legend. So the kind of the gray, this gray sketched area here. This is the built environment. So this one is built. Oh, oops, let's go back. this one is built, this one is built, and area and so on. Then the dark areas are water bodies, and then these dotted areas, these dotted areas are kind of the green spaces. All right, and obviously there are many different types of possible assemblies, more squares with organic lines, or more circular patterns, and so on. You get the point, right? But really what is important is the assembly and the spaces which are created with the qualities of the combination together in form and also in scale. And so Anca and Uli found a concept that looks like this, and it is basically based on these two main water axes that enclose a main square, you could say, with a main city part here, and then some other specific arrangements of different types in those four quadrants. But then this was more also thought or designed as a design principle, so that this pattern or this let's say methodology of how the city works or how those parts actually work can also be extended further on into larger and larger areas, so kind of potentially even extending over the entire planet. And this actually manifested in this final design which Anca implemented in City Engine. And you see here also that the whole form of the city is kind of in this puzzle piece form, and has these parts that you see they could be extended. There could be another park, another waterway, and so on, to actually go further and further and further. And obviously you can also grow smaller and smaller and take the same principle and just start somewhere in a location that is really small. So you could potentially even start with this in one backyard and then start to extend into very large areas. So the point of this, let's say, ideal city, meaning that yes, you can do something. Yes, you can do something that is ideal, even though that it means it's just a small intervention, but it's based on the desire or the will to actually do something, right? And then together as a society or as combined cultures, we could together go into something that is really a great living space that has great qualities, to get where there are necessary infrastructure spaces, but also very calm natural or nature spaces or parks and waterways. All right. So this is still the representation in the or as a preview while it was being modeled in City Engine, and then actually there's another representation here, just zoomed in a little bit, and you see this representation is actually really large, but again it's based on the same principles, and you could go in further in and subdivide it like a puzzle piece. You could or an entire puzzle, you could go way beyond it. All right. Now some visualizations of this environment done in some of the 3D tools that we're usually using also for this photorealistic visualization here. There's another view here. And another one here, and kind of you feel the desire that you would like to dive in and go walk in those parks, because it seems the whole atmosphere seems to be really nice as a really livable city. And another image here, and it's actually so interesting to see, right? So you see these these very large forms that are still, of course, they are artificial, and there are these super modern skyscrapers kind of just also sometimes very close together. Okay, in this case, maybe a little bit too close together, but who cares, right? But then there are these open spaces where you can go for walks with your dog, or and just have an entirely different experience wherever you are in this very large city. And another view from the top showing this beautiful arrangement. Look at these circles here. It's just magnificent. You can even drive there. All right. And a quick animation. Let's have another look. All right. Sweet. So that was it for the presentation, and I wanted to say thank you, especially to Uli of the Ideal Spaces Working Group, and then also to my own team at Urban, and especially Anca, who made everything possible on our end as the team lead, and then also to everybody else in the team who makes it possible for us to create all of this beautiful content and the tool sets. For those that are in general interested in 3D environments and those technologies, it's actually my pleasure to announce that I have just very recently started my own podcast. It's called the 3D Environment Podcast. So in case you're interested in that, please go ahead and listen to it. And just a quick hint, sometime probably early January, also Uli of the Ideal Spaces Working Group will be interviewed on the podcast. So I'm really looking forward to this episode. Otherwise, again, here's our website. If there are any questions, reach out to us or reach out to Uli. And with that, thank you so much. And if there are questions now, then let's dive into them here at the Buchmesse in Germany. All right. Thank you, everybody, and let's have a great discussion. Bye-bye.